Okay, hi everyone. I'm Alexis Williams, the co-founder of Business Skills for Health Professionals, and welcome to our podcast, Beyond Clinical. In this podcast, we'll be interviewing health professionals from diverse backgrounds who have moved into unconventional roles beyond clinical. We'll be hearing their stories and tips, and we hope that this inspires you to pursue unique career paths. So this is the 8th episode of the podcast and the first one of 2024. And I'd like to introduce my guest, Deanne Brandstetter. Deanne, feel free to say hello to the audience.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Alexis.
Thank you for coming. So before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit about Deanne's background. So Deanne has her MBA and is a registered dietitian with over 30 years experience in the food and nutrition business. As Vice President of Nutrition and Wellness for Compass Group North America, she leads a team that coordinates wellness programs for food service clients and develops innovative and award-winning cross-sector nutrition and wellness initiatives. She also directed the nutrition program for the 2002 Winter Olympic Games in Salt Lake City, Utah, as part of the Compass Olympics lead management team. That's a very cool experience. I want to hear more about that one. Deanne's marketing background and passion for great food has fueled her goal of creatively translating medical and nutrition science into innovative and exciting food concepts for Compass Group customers. She earned an American Culinary Federation silver medal for healthy cuisine and has presented at meetings in the US and globally. Deanne is a Culinary Institute of America Fellow and was a member of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Sustainable Food Systems Roundtable and Task Force on Menu Labeling, past chair of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Nominating Committee, member of the Academy Diversity Committee, past chair of Dietitians in Business and Communications, and 2022 to 23 treasurer of the Academy, co-chair of the CIA Healthy Menus R&D Collaborative, and is serving as a Nourishment Concept Advisor. She also serves on the advisory board of the Dean of the School of Education, Health and Society at Miami University. She was awarded a Well Community Award in 2021 and Dietitians in Business and Communications Outstanding Leader in 2022. So super excited to have you, Deanne. We'll jump into our questions. And my first one is kind of a fun one. What's something that you're excited about for this upcoming season? And it doesn't have to be work related.
So I actually have a personal one and a work-related one. From a personal one, I'm just really excited in 2024 to not be moving and not be renovating a house. Years worth of continual moves and home renovations that I've lived through. So this is very exciting. Um, from a professional standpoint, I'm really excited because Compass has launched a global well-being forum, and we're bringing together dietitians and nutrition and other health professionals who support countries all over the world to collaborate on best practices and innovation. And I have the honor of being one of the co-chairs of that. So that's
Super
going to be very
exciting.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be great to have all those minds at the table, I'm sure. Exciting. Will that be like an in-person or virtual or a bit of both?
Right now it's a virtual platform, but we're refining goals and targets, and we'll see where we go from there.
Awesome. Exciting. Well, so I'm going to jump into my first question, which is really in your words to tell me a little bit about your career path and your journey kind of into the business sector as a registered dietitian.
Thanks. You know, the story I love to tell is that it was a very snowy, cold winter when I was in college at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. And we had an epic blizzard. And it literally shut down the campus for 3 days, which is very unusual. It's a residential college, so pretty much every student lives on campus, at least at that time, and shut things down. Well, I was a student manager working in one of the dining halls, the manager couldn't get in, the regular manager couldn't get in. The deliveries couldn't get in. And I finally managed to shovel my way to the dining hall with the help of one of the chefs who helped me open things up. We pretty much over the course of 3 days emptied the freezer, emptied the pantry, emptied the walk-in, and cooked and cooked and cooked because students who can't go to class who are living on campus, what do they want to do? They want to go eat in the
Yeah.
middle of this. And I think that was the pivotal experience that really made me say, this is so exciting. I love being in the food business, and that kind of set me on the path. Now, I after my internship, I actually did work in clinical for a number of years, but always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to get back into the food business part. So left, got an MBA, which at that point was not a very commonplace degree for
Hmm.
a doctor to have, and worked in a variety of businesses, some inside nutrition and food, some outside, but eventually wound up doing some consulting work. And it brought me to what at that time was Flick International. And that was about 27 years ago, which was a mom and pop food service company in the Northeast section of the United States. I had great mentors there, Rudy and Julie Flick, who were the owners. And but my first day at work, they announced that they had sold the company to Compass Group.
Oh, wow.
So I wasn't sure if I even had a job anymore. It was that discombobulating thing. But over the next 8 or 10 years, Flick was still fairly small as a division. And so everyone did everything, which was the very best experience to position me from a business standpoint. So I went to pretty much every new account opening we had. I helped do marketing. I helped do signage. I learned a lot about culinary and writing recipes and marketing and merchandising and sales and business development and quality control and purchasing and finance even. So I was able to acquire a lot of those skills. And then as Compass grew in the United States and acquired other businesses, I was able to grow along with it. We now have all sorts of business operating sectors, everything from K-12 schools to healthcare and long-term care. So it's interesting because I need to dig back into some of my clinical skills because
Hmm.
I'm now working with about 2,500 to 2,700 clinical dietitians who support our
Wow.
healthcare and care sectors. So even though I swore I wouldn't go back into clinical, I need to know enough about the business to be able to understand their issues, to understand the opportunities in the healthcare and long-term care sector and the K-12 school sector, and to be able to support those dietitians. The other area that I think my clinical skills were really important from a translational standpoint, we're working right now on consumer behavior change. And when I
Mm.
think back to clinical days, a lot of it was understanding Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all of
Hmm.
that sort of stuff. And obviously, consumer behavior change science has evolved greatly, but a lot of it's based on that. So,
Hmm.
really being able to understand consumer needs and take that consumer behavior change experience back to them.
That's really cool. I really loved hearing about how you had, just by working for a smaller company in the early days, you got that broad experience. And what you just said too about the parallel between clinical work and marketing and consumer behavior. I think that's really valuable for people to understand because it can be a way of drawing out your transferable skills if you've started out in clinical and you do want to go into something a little bit different. So thank you for that. What things do you think helped you along your journey?
I think the biggest thing was volunteering for any and all opportunities that were outside of my immediate area of expertise, and sometimes outside of my comfort zone. When
Mm-hmm.
I when I first joined Flick, I had one of the women chefs approached me and she asked me to do a culinary competition with her. It was called
Cool.
Healthy Cuisine. I thought that all I had to do was help her design the menu that had to meet various nutrition criteria and parameters. But as we started working through the menu and the recipes and analyzing, she said, you have to cook too
Mm.
in this competition. So I really had to brush up on culinary skills. And
Yeah.
I went to her account every afternoon when I finished work for about 6 months and practiced knife skills and practiced and literally went through culinary school with her. And that's how I wound up with the ACF silver medal. But the thing that was the best about that is it gave me credibility working with all these chefs. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't look at food police anymore because
Mm-hmm.
I'd been this culinary training. I had this American Culinary Federation silver medal. So it gave me credibility. I think the other thing was the Olympics. You know,
Mm-hmm.
everyone did everything at the Olympics. Um,
Mm-hmm.
even though I was there as the registered dietitian that was required to be in the Olympic Village by the IOC regulations, I I helped. I got up in the middle of the night if some employees didn't show up and mopped floors and scrubbed pots and pans. I helped put together catering orders. I drove delivery trucks to different areas. Um, so I did a little bit of everything, and it really gave me an appreciation
Mm-hmm.
for the workers that are part of the business overall.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I think just like you said, saying yes to those opportunities and not being able to roll your sleeves up, not being afraid to roll your sleeves up and get in there, it does really add a lot of credibility to you as you continue to grow in your career. That's really cool. What are some of the key skills that you would say you learned along the way? I know you had your formal business training early on in your career, but what kinds of things did you find you learned throughout your time at Compass?
I think the first one is patience. Um, I when I have an idea, I really want to put it into action and see it to the end quickly. And I had to learn that no doesn't mean no. It means not today. And
Mm-hmm.
in some cases, it's not the right time. In some cases, that no means I haven't communicated the benefit appropriately. In
Yep.
some cases, it means it's just going to take the operators longer to adopt new practices. So I think the first was patience. The second is collaboration and consensus building. I have a very small team out of the 3,000 registered dietitian nutritionists. I have a very small team that actually reports directly to me. But since I lead strategic initiatives for those 3,000 registered dietitians in Compass Group and chair the Global Wellness Forum, to move forward, I absolutely had to successfully build consensus and foster ownership of these key initiatives, and acting as a catalyst for change. And that's much more difficult than when you have someone reporting to you that you can say, do this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that idea of asking questions, of acting as a catalyst, and and moving an organization forward. Um, so that's probably number two. And I think number three relates to that, but it's having a question thinking approach or a learner approach.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, I read a book called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee Adams. And it really talks about moving from a judger, where you're telling people what to do. I think you should, that
Mm.
kind of approach. What would happen if we did X? Have you thought about doing Y? What do you think about
Mm.
Z? And it makes a huge difference. So I think those are really the three things that have helped along the journey.
I'm going to get the name of that book for the show notes because I think that book,
Yeah.
I haven't read it personally, but the concepts of it sound similar to some of the training I've had in leadership coaching around asking questions versus telling, right? And that concept of curiosity. I think that can be really valuable to any health professional, actually at any phase of your career, even when you're working with patients one-on-one, to maybe moving into more of a leadership role. I love that. We're gonna dig into that one. What would you say were your biggest career related challenges that you faced?
I think the other thing I had to learn was, or the other challenge I had is that by nature, I'm an optimist. So I had to learn to hold back my enthusiasm over new initiatives and learn to under promise and over deliver. I love to go in and really talk about all the great things that my team was going to do or that we were going to do. But I had to be 100% sure that we were going to deliver on every one of those. So maybe if I promised 70% and then delivered 110%, the perception is so much better in the business world. And I think finally, the last challenge that I had was building up the respect and power and also pay for RDNs within Compass Group. For years, I was the only non-clinical dietitian working in the company, but over time was able to show direct benefit in terms of new clients, in terms of revenue, of having RDs working in K-12 schools, in college and universities, in corporate dining settings. Today, we have RDNs in Compass Group working in very high-level positions, including one who's a division president and another who's an executive vice president. So that was a big challenge, but I think we've made a lot of headway in making progress there.
Yeah, those are great ones, and I can certainly relate to a few of them in my own experience working in retail, especially of the getting excited, maybe not being patient, and the over-promising and under-delivering one. That one is tough, especially when you have a team that you have to make sure they're all on board for your grand vision. So that's a good one. Yeah. So any advice you have for someone who's considering they've maybe had some years in clinical and are looking to branch out into more of a business and industry role as a health professional?
Well, I think someone who's interested in doing that, I mean, if you don't already have a master's degree, you might consider an MBA, but I don't think it's essential. Many colleges and universities now, post-COVID, have online certificate programs in various business topics. So if there's a specific area that you're interested in, project management, data analytics, marketing and communications, I think you can also do a certificate in some of those areas more easily than was possible in the past. The other piece of advice I would say is to, if you're working in healthcare currently in clinical nutrition, ask if you can shadow folks within your organization who work in other departments, in accounting and finance, in marketing and communications, in strategic planning. I think you'll learn a lot and also gain appreciation for where RDNs sit within that healthcare structure that might even help you be more effective in your current role from a power and respect standpoint. And then my final piece of advice would be to join some of the academy dietetic practice groups that focus on business. So dietitians in business and communications, nutrition entrepreneurs, the food and culinary professionals, which have a retail dietitians subgroup and also a restaurant subgroup and a food safety subgroup. So all three working in various areas of business. So I think those would be my recommendations.
Yeah, those are great. I think the one that is really interesting to me is the education piece. And I think you're right. Like getting an MBA is great, but not everyone has the time and investment capability for a degree like that. And I think learning in the moment and learning an area that you're very interested in can be incredibly valuable. And there's so much more accessible now in some of those really niche areas that, you know, you can access and do part-time while you continue to work your job. And I also really like the networking one. My experience in finance was a little bit challenging. And one of the things I found really helpful was just making friends with people in finance and having regular chats to be able to ask all my questions. And I could reciprocate by answering kind of health and nutrition questions that they had.
Sure.
So, you know, it can kind of go both ways in a lot of those friendships and colleague collaborations. That's great advice.
And I
What
think
are some of, oh yeah, go ahead.
I think a lot of the certificate courses are currently are on really hot topics in emerging areas.
Yes.
You know, so I've seen AI certificate programs, and I know in the field of nutrition and dietetics, that is going to be such a hot area. And for all, so same thing with data analytics. We use data to make decisions all the time now, and it's really a hot topic. So it gives someone that much more advantage than just a general.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. What are some of, on that note, what are some of your own personal development goals for the year?
Well, I think one is getting this interactive behavior change toolkit launched. You know, what I found over the last 2 or 3 years, really looking at consumer behavior change, certainly for big food service organizations like Compass Group, we need to shift consumer behavior. We have climate targets, we have goals around health and nutrition and well-being that we've set and that also our clients have set. So to do that, we have to shift consumer behavior. But when you look at the body of consumer behavior change research, it's very complicated.
Yes.
And so we wanted to distill it into an interactive toolkit that an average manager running one of our locations would be able to pretty much go through a decision tree process and be able to choose 3 tactics that they're going to implement next week. To make it super simple, this very complicated body of research and just being very simple. So that's number 1, is getting that launched. Number 2 is growing our Compass Group RDN Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Network, which we launched about a year and a half, 2 years ago, with the idea of really helping grow a more diverse body of RDNs working within Compass, providing a very inclusive environment for the ones who are working there, and bringing cultural humility, cultural competency to the RDNs that are currently working within Compass Group, to make sure that what we offer, whether it be actual food or clinical nutrition services to patients, are very culturally relevant to them. And then finally, one that I'm very proud of, we've been working with a major university in the US on launching a sustainable food systems training for our RDs. What we're finding is that in many cases, the RDs are the ones who are being tapped to lead sustainable food systems or sustainability initiatives in their respective sectors or respective locations. And in some cases, they're coming with, with very little training in this area, or not without background, the understanding all the why, and what some of the issues are. So we're working with a major university to create a 5-module online training, which is about to launch any day now, to really give them the background and the why, and enable them to speak that language and lead in that space more intelligently.
That's exciting and much needed, I can imagine. I really love what you said about the consumer behavior work that you're planning to do. I think it's interesting that companies, both in the food service and food manufacturing industry, like are setting these targets, but we have to create the demand from consumers to actually make those choices and buy those products. So that is super interesting to me. I'm excited to see where you go with that. Yeah. And this is kind of another fun question to maybe end off, but what's something that you do every week that sets you up for success, either personally or professionally, and something that maybe you do on an annual basis as well?
From a weekly standpoint, I try to take some time on Sunday evening before the
Mm-hmm.
week to look at the upcoming week and to block out a little bit of time to work on longer term strategic projects. Once the
Yes.
week's, it's so easy to get caught up in the day to day, back to back calls, the fire drills, this has, email has to be answered right away. Um, but at the same time, it's equally important to be able to move big initiatives forward,
Mm-hmm.
and especially from a strategic standpoint. So taking just a little bit of time on a Sunday evening allows me to look at the upcoming week more holistically and plan, try to block out some time like that. I'll also, look back and say, were there action items from the week before that I missed, that I
Yep.
ran out of time, didn't happen? And finally, the last thing from a weekly standpoint, I really try hard to schedule in some stretch and exercise time.
Yeah.
If you don't schedule it, you don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a 10 minutes Peloton arms and light weights between calls,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do that. But I really will try to schedule in that time so that I can come back to my desk and feel refreshed and revitalized. From an annual standpoint, I would say the the biggest thing that I work on is focusing on people and looking at my team and what are opportunities for them to learn and grow. I have a wonderful team. I don't want to lose any of them because I
Mm-hmm.
don't want them to that they don't have opportunities to learn and grow. So it could be a stretch assignment. It could be academy leadership positions. I think the other thing, both for myself and my team, is that I look at different types of conferences or continuing education to participate in. Something
Mm-hmm.
really out of my wheelhouse, again,
Mm-hmm.
that might be my skills. So um, it might be a conference on AI. It might be a conference on data analytics. It might be so something that's different. It's
Mm-hmm.
out of the It's not just the normal nutrition and well-being conference, but uh, what kind of conference could I attend, and what ones would I want my team to attend? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
which ones do I think might be great for them to attend? So that's, I think, the biggest thing from an annual standpoint.
Yeah, those are great. I love that outside of the box thinking when it comes to your continuing education. I think it's really important to not only stay up to date on kind of food and nutrition and wellness areas, but yeah, have some fun exploring things that are different and outside of your everyday and are trending, because you're going to need those skills in the next little while, I'm sure, in some of those areas with everything coming. It's exciting. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share with the audience?
I think there are so many opportunities now in non-traditional or non-clinical careers in nutrition and dietetics. It's really, and it continues to grow. Every day there's
Mm-hmm.
a new area that pops up. So you have to think about what your passion is. I mean, mine is food and great tasting food that's also good for you. So that's where I started. And you also have to look at what your personality or your disc profile or Myers Briggs or whatever you do is, and then look for opportunities. I know RDNs that are working in such novel areas like food styling, like
Mm-hmm.
aeroponic cooking, because that was their area of passion. So I
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest thing if you're thinking about making a career change, there are so many new opportunities, and you just have to find that sweet spot, which is the thing that you love doing and that you'll love doing every day when you wake up.
Yeah, I love that. I think looking not only at your strengths, so what are you already good at? How can you be better at that is a really big part of this, but also, yeah, exactly what you're excited about. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What part of the broad industry are you most enthusiastic about? And looking and starting to network with people who are maybe in some of those companies can be really valuable for that career growth. Well, thank you so much for everything you've shared with us. I think the listeners will have learned a lot from you, Deanne, and we're really thankful that you were able to join for the podcast. So we'll wrap up here, and everyone have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexa.